The signal came in wrong in every way that mattered. Dara Osei caught it at 2:31 station time, 3 hours into her solo night shift at Farpan Array Station 7, Earth's southernmost deep space listening post, perched on the rim of the Ganymede Plateau, where the interference floor was low enough to hear signals from the outer coalition reaches. She was 24 years old and 9 months into her first posting, and her job on the night watch was to log atmospheric transients, run calibration sweeps, and mostly not bother anyone. The array did not normally catch distress signals. It was a passive receiver, not a rescue relay. Its job was science, mapping background radiation, logging stellar drift, cataloging traffic on the outer approach corridors for the Colonial Astronomical Survey. What hit her board at 2:30 was not a stellar transient. She almost filed it as corruption. The signal was weak, barely 40 decibels above the noise floor, and its modulation was wrong in ways that suggested equipment failure rather than intentional transmission. The carrier frequency was 14 echo, which was one of Earth's oldest deep space emergency bands, deprecated 30 years ago when the Coalition standardized emergency traffic on the REACH protocol. Nobody broadcast on 14 echo anymore. The frequency sat dead on every shift log Dara had ever pulled. This was not dead. She pulled the signal off the buffer and ran it through the analysis suite. The modulation was chaotic, Doppler-shifted, intermittent, with phase breaks that suggested the transmitter was losing power and recovering in cycles. But underneath the chaos, there was a pattern, a deliberate one, short, long, short, short in the carrier pulses, repeating every 11 seconds. That was not equipment noise. Equipment noise did not repeat every 11 seconds. She flagged the signal and called the array's automated decryption suite, knowing already it was not going to return a clean result. The syntax was not Coalition standard. It was not Earth standard, either not current Earth standard. But it carried something she recognized from her emergency comms cross-training. A hull loss encoding in a format so old that the suite had to pull from its legacy xenolinguistic library to parse it. The encoding resolved in 40 seconds. It was Tharessi Trade Common, written in the pre-coalition REACH format that predated the current emergency protocols by 60 years. The message it contained was 7 words long. Still alive, still here, please keep looking. Dara sat with that for 2 seconds, then she started working. The signal had an origin tag embedded in the subcarrier, heavily degraded but partially readable. She ran it through the triangulation suite using the array's baseline interferometry. Station 7 operated in concert with 2 other array nodes on Ganymede's far side, and together they could localize a signal to within a few light minutes if the source was within the outer approach corridor range. The process took 4 minutes and 20 seconds. She watched the progress bar and kept one eye on the signal buffer, watching the transmission cycle repeat. Short, long, short, short, every 11 seconds, steady as a pulse. Whoever was out, there was still transmitting. The localization result placed the origin at a point approximately 3.7 light hours from Ganymede, in the outer margin of the Colvath transit corridor, a stretch of empty space that served as a shortcut through the outer belt for coalition cargo traffic. The position was consistent with a vessel in drift. No heading. No drive signature detectable at this range. She cross-referenced with the transit registry. The Colvath corridor had logged 6 vessels in the past 72 hours. 5 of them had filed clean passage reports at the corridor's exit beacon. The 6th had not. The 6th was a Tharessi mid-haul freighter called the Sol and Keth, crew of 3, cargo of pharmaceutical pre-compounds inbound from the Coalition Industrial Station at Reach 11. Scheduled to exit the Colvath corridor 29 hours ago, its departure registry showed it entering the corridor in normal condition. It had never exited. Dara pulled the Colvath corridor hazard log. 41 hours ago, a microdebris event had been recorded in the corridor's mid-segment, a dense field of fractured rock from a recent asteroid fragmentation, uncharted because the charting sweep ran on a 6-week cycle, and the fragmentation had happened 9 weeks ago and nobody had noticed. The debris field was not large enough to flag as a navigation hazard in the standard outbound advisory. It was large enough to kill a freighter that hit it at transit speed. Still alive, still here, please keep looking. 3 crew. If the ship had taken a debris strike at transit speed, there could have been hull loss, drive loss, atmosphere loss. The survivor, one survivor, broadcasting on a hand-cobbled emitter on a frequency 60 years dead, had been drifting in the Colvath corridor for approximately 41 hours. The transmitter was using 14 echo because it was the only hardware that had survived. She understood that now. The Solon Keth was a Tharessi vessel, but Tharessi traders ran mixed salvage on their comms rigs. Old Earth standard emergency emitters were cheap, common, and durable, and this one had done exactly what it was designed to do. It had found the only frequency its surviving hardware could reach, and it had kept broadcasting until someone listened. Dara opened the outbound rescue relay and began composing an alert to Coalition Rescue Coordination at Colvath Station. She got 3 words into the header and stopped, because she had already run the query and she already knew the answer. Colvath Station's primary rescue cutter, the one rated for debris field extraction, was currently offline for scheduled maintenance. Colvath Station's secondary response vessel was a patrol launch with no medical bay and a crew of 2. Its response time from current position to the Solon Keth drift location was 6 hours and 40 minutes. She checked the life sign data in the beacon subcarrier. The transmitter was not a full emergency beacon. It was improvised, cobbled from whatever had survived the strike. It was broadcasting carrier pulses and text, not biometric telemetry. She could not read life signs from here. She could only read the fact that someone was still transmitting. 6 hours and 40 minutes was a very long time to still be transmitting from a wreck. She pulled up the traffic registry again and searched the outer approach corridors within 2 light towers of the Solon Keth's position for any active Earth or Coalition vessels. 3 came back. 2 were cargo freighters on outbound runs with no medical capability. The 3rd was an Earth Courier Service fast dispatch vessel, the ECS Ardent Run, currently transiting the Voss approach lane approximately 1.1 light towers from the debris field. The Ardent Run was a solo-crewed fast courier, not a rescue ship, not armed, not equipped with a proper medical bay. It had a basic emergency kit and a single pilot. It also had a drive rated for 0.4 light on sprint, which meant it could reach the Solon Keth in approximately 53 minutes. Dara opened a direct comm channel to the Ardent Run on Earth Courier Service frequency. The response came back in 4 minutes and 22 seconds, the light lag each way, 2 minutes 11 each direction. The voice that answered was unhurried, slightly rough at the edges in the way of someone who had been awake for too long. "This is Pilot Jakub Novik, ECS Ardent Run. You are on Earth Array Station 7. What do you have?" She sent him everything. The full signal analysis, the triangulation result, the transit registry flag, the debris field location, the timing, all of it in one compressed burst. While the light lag carried it to him, she went back to the beacon buffer and checked, still transmitting, short, long, short, short, 11 seconds. Novik's reply came back 8 minutes later, 4 minutes each way at increasing distance, because he had not waited for her confirmation before acting. "I have your data. I am already on a revised heading. Sprint drive engaged. I will reach the Solon Keth position in 49 minutes from mark." A pause. "I have a first aid kit, 2 emergency atmosphere suits, 3 ration packs, and a cargo bay I can pressurize." "Tell me what I am looking for." Dara looked at the beacon encoding and told him what she knew. Tharessi physiology, bilateral carbon-oxygen breathers, standard temperature range close enough to human norms that Novik's emergency suits would function, blood chemistry requiring no special intervention for basic trauma stabilization. 3 crew listed on the manifest. 1 survivor transmitting. She did not say the obvious math aloud. Novik could do it himself. She stayed on the channel. The light lag stretched with every minute as the ardent run pushed deeper into the corridor, and she wrote out each message fully before sending, knowing he would receive it as she was already composing the next. She gave him the debris field density from the corridor hazard log. She gave him the likely drift vector, calculated from the beacon's Doppler shift over the 40 minutes she had been tracking it. She gave him the Tharessi emergency survival protocols from the Coalition survival database, formatted into steps he could execute alone with 1 emergency kit. At 3:19, 48 minutes after she had first pulled the signal from the buffer, the Ardent Run's transmitter shifted to short-range local broadcast. The light lag collapsed. Novik was close enough now that his signal reached her in under a minute. I have visual on a debris field, medium spread. I can see 1 intact pod on drift trajectory at bearing 274. His voice was the same unhurried register. No additional intact structures visible. Pod is tumbling slow. I am going to match rotation. Dara watched the beacon buffer, still transmitting, short, long, short, short. 11 seconds. Confirm visual on the pod, she said. What is your approach speed? Slow, debris is loose but manageable. I have flown worse. A pause. Much worse, actually. She held the channel open and said nothing. There was nothing useful to say. Novik was the one doing the work now. She was a voice from 3 light towers away, and the only thing she could offer was the fact of someone still listening. At 3:31, exactly 1 hour since she had first caught the signal, Novik's voice came back. I am at the pod. Hull is intact. There is an emitter bolted to the exterior casing, hand-mounted, looks like salvage work, cable-tied with cargo webbing. A brief silence, the kind that meant he was looking at something carefully. Signal is still live. Copy, Dara said. Cycling airlock when ready. Already cycling. She kept her eyes on the beacon buffer. At 3:34, the short, long, short, short pulses stopped. The buffer read, carrier lost. She did not breathe for 30 seconds. Then Novik's voice returned, quieter than before. I have 1 survivor, Tharessi, female adult. She is conscious. He stopped. She could hear something in the background on his end, a voice she could not parse through the translation lag. Then Novik again. She is asking how long the signal was running. She says the emitter had enough power for 12 days. She has been counting. Dara looked at the timestamp on the first received pulse. 41 hours since the debris strike. 9 days of power still remaining when Novik cut the emitter. The survivor had bolted salvaged Earth hardware to the exterior hull of her emergency pod, tuned it to the only active frequency the wrecked emitter could reach, and she had set it running and she had waited. She had counted down 12 days of power against the silence, holding the number in her head like a piece of arithmetic that refused to resolve. 3,412 transmissions. That was how many times the pulse had cycled before Novik silenced the emitter by opening the pod. Dara had been counting them since she first flagged the signal, a habit she had not been able to explain to herself while she was doing it, except that it felt wrong to let them pass uncounted. Tell her, Dara said carefully, that the signal ran for 41 hours. Tell her the array was listening. The light lag carried it out. The light lag brought back Novik's quiet voice. She says she knows. She says she could tell. Dara filed the incident report, flagged the Colvath debris field as a priority navigation hazard requiring immediate charting update, and notified Coalition Rescue Coordination that the ECS Ardent Run had recovered 1 survivor from the Solon Keth wreck and was proceeding to the nearest medical facility at Colvath Station. She closed the emergency channel at 3:52. Then she sat for a moment and looked at the beacon buffer. The carrier lost indicator sat in the log like a period at the end of a sentence that had taken 41 hours to write. Above it, in the archive, 3,412 pulses, each one 11 seconds after the last, each one carrying the same 7 words toward whatever might be listening in the dark. Still alive, still here, please keep looking. The transmitter had not known it was sending to Earth. The emitter was salvage hardware, 60 years old, defaulting to the only active band left in its memory. Dara was not sure the survivor had known, either not at first. She had aimed her signal at anything, at everything, at the empty dark, because the alternative was not aiming at all. She had kept counting her 12 days of power, and she had kept transmitting, and somewhere on the rim of a plateau on Ganymede, a 24-year-old array operator had been 3 hours into her night shift and had pulled the signal from the noise and had not filed it as corruption. That was the whole of it. That was the entire distance between found and not found. Dara closed the archive, ran her calibration sweep, and went back to cataloging stellar drift. Outside on the plateau, the array's primary dish tilted 4 degrees east, tracking the next pass of the outer corridor. The night was long and the interference floor was low, and there was a great deal of sky left to cover. She set the buffer sensitivity up 2 notches and kept listening.